Hi Fiber Arts Kids, this is Mrs. Sweeney, and I have a short video for you about our loom knitting. And I've got a few samples out, a few looms, and I was going to tell you about some of the ones tutorials I've provided online. So the first and second one you've already seen. The first one, this one reminds me of it. It had Sweetest Journey. She's like one of my favorite tutorials. And she used a slate blue kind of color yarn, and she made a hat very similar to this one. This is actually by one of our students here. And it didn't have like a fold over brim. It was real simple, just like this, which is actually a favorite of most people. Where used a circle loom, but like a child's hat size, and made a toboggan, and then added a pom-pom. And there wasn't any kind of tutorial about how to make a pom-pom. That's for later time. I can show you at school. But she did add one on. And that one was interesting because I wanted you to see how not everybody does it the same. She was wrapping towards the left. Like I just naturally just kind of go to the right and do my little E stitches, kind of wrapping counterclockwise on the peg. She was going to the left, so it's like she's wrapping a different way. Or actually, I'm sorry, mine was going clockwise. And she's going this way, so it's wrapping the other way. But the idea is that even though different people do it different ways, as long as you have the results, there's different ways to get there to have it be successful. So don't worry if you see different people doing it different ways. As long as you're consistent and you're making a stitch that works, then you're really good. And then there was another one that was on a loom knit hat, and it was more like this one that I made a while back, where it has a brim. Like when you're making it, it was an adult size round loom, and you would knit several rows, and then you would fold it back over and connect it, and then just keep on going to get to the end. So the loom knit hat tutorial by Marchie North was very similar to the way I had made this hat. It was like a teal hat on the video, with a fold over brim, no pom-pom, and it was cool because she changed colors about midway, where she just tied on another color, and she went to the right like I normally teach, doubled up, and then flipped over to stitches. And it was cool because her loom didn't even have an anchor peg. She had just like marked it with a piece of tape or something like that. So everybody has different tools, and that's fine. And of course they all use the pick. Some people call it a hook, but it's a loom pick. And then there are two videos I've provided that I'd like for you to look over, tonight or the weekend. Video number 3 is called Loom Knitted Mini Drawstring Bag, and the reason why I provided those, both of those use a rectangular loom. Now these are circle looms, obviously. I had a couple rectangular looms, but I couldn't show you them because I loaned it out already. So I'm probably going to go buy another one for the weekend. But the number 3 video is Loom Knitted Mini Drawstring Bag, and using a drawstring like this. Like that's just a type of yarn that I actually just braided and fed it through. But that one was pretty exciting because it showed you how to actually, it's really just a hat if you think about it. And this is a real mini sample I made the other night. But it's basically that hat with the fold over brim, and then you catch a drawstring. As you're making it, you feed a drawstring in, and she used like a little rectangular loom, also called a rake loom, but worked it just like a circle loom. So what I did, since I had circle looms at home, I did her technique, but I used a circle loom. In fact, it was like probably this one right here, and made like a miniature drawstring bag. She used a yellow yarn and made it like a little short one. I just did a long one. But that was a fun one that was just like making a hat basically, except upside down. And I found out that I really wanted to use my rainbow yarn that I was so excited about because my daughter likes these rainbow colors, and I wanted the colors to feed real smoothly, like, gradually change. But this is like a number 4 worsted weight, which means like thinner, and it just, when I was working with it, it just made like a mesh where I could see through it, and I was very unhappy with that. I would have had to have doubled up, which I actually tried, but I didn't like the way the colors went together. for this particular type of color changing yarn. So I ended up taking it all off and undoing it, which is fine because I didn't waste any yarn. That's why I had this little ball of yarn here. I'd just taken it off the loom and recycled it basically. And then, so I have to use a loom successfully, the best way is to either double up on a regular number 4 or just get a chunky yarn, like a number 5 or number 6 bulky yarn. You can see the big difference between the thicknesses. A lot more success without having the loopy holes, if you use just a thicker yarn to begin with or double up. So you can see that this is using a thicker yarn also when it's in progress. Okay, and then the fourth video that I'd like you to look at, there's just 2 for today or the weekend, how to loom knit a scarf, and that one's also by Sweetest Journey. She's one of my favorites. She uses like a gray yarn that's bulky. She had a rectangular rake loom that was about this size, and I left that one for last because she also introduces the use of a crochet hook, which is kind of a nice transition. And crochet hooks come in really handy to finish things off. So she finishes off her scarf at the very end with this. So that's something we can kind of experiment with later because we're going to do a little bit of crocheting anyway eventually. She also starts hers, so don't get scared by that. She starts her scarf off instead of doing a slip knot like I normally would have showed you. Oops, let me find a bulky yarn like this one. Like for instance a slip knot. Just taking the end, really just basically folding it over, then kind of putting that circle over my working yarn, which means it's attached to the ball here, and pulling it through. There's different ways to make slip knots. The cool thing is it slips out when you're done with it. There was another way that I thought was kind of cool, where you just wrap it around your finger twice, like when you do it the second time, you like make an X, spread your fingers, and pull that through. Oops, too short of a tail. You gotta have a tail. Okay, this is a horrible example. There we go. Okay. So different ways to make it. Easiest way, just to kind of pull it through like that. Okay, so that's just a slip knot, and it goes on the anchor peg. Now you can see this, they do it. Anyway, I was talking about the fourth loom. She uses a crochet hook. Don't worry about that. You can just do it like the old-fashioned one, like this. Like there's the anchor peg. Looms are different. Sometimes they're offset a little bit. This one has a peg right above it, so you can decide which one you consider the first one. And then, oops, sorry. This is the normal way that I usually teach it. But remember, some people go left and wrap the other way. It's still like an E-stitch. And you'll end, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because we'll have time for this later also. But basically go all the way around, and when you get back to here, back around to your last peg, you kind of just push these down. Some people push them down along the way. Some people push them down afterwards to leave room at the top of the peg to do another round, because you have to have 2 to do the stitch where you knit over. So again, different people have different kinds of styles, but they all end up, successful towards the end. So watch those tutorials, because I know some of you are going to use the rectangular looms, but again, remember, I ended up using a round loom because that's what I had to make the drawstring bag that was shown in the tutorial as using a rectangular loom. Still worked. So, just experiment a little bit. Okay, see you in class.